Hey, welcome to this live stream. This is going to be a good one, and I'm excited to geek out with you about some really important stuff, some really foundational stuff, which are Roman numerals in music. So as always, if you're part of the replay crew, let us know where you're coming from, and let's jump in. Actually, before we should jump in, I should acknowledge that I'm feeling kind of tranced out right now. My brain is like an overworked muscle right now. Just to kind of give you a sense, like you, I start my day early, or if you start your day early, I do too. And just work throughout the day and then jump into the course. Right now I'm working on lesson 18. Yeah, it's lesson 18, which is about modes. And so thinking about modes, which are really cool patterns, really abstract patterns, and the way that they fit together with everything else leading up to what follows after that is a lot. So I feel like I'm, much of the time in a dreamlike state, which may or may not be a poetic description. I might actually be in a dreamlike state sometimes. And so anyway, let's jump in. Actually, I was going to show you though. Lesson 18 is about modes, expanding your palette. And it's the middle of part 5. Part 5 is about improvisation, which is really where it's like taking everything in the course that leads up to that, parts 1 through 4, building upon that to then really just speak the language of music as fluently and freely as possible. Improvisation. So modes is a big part of that in the language of music and how to really express yourself through song. So that is what I'm working on the back end. But right now, we're going to talk about Roman numerals. I saw someone had recently commented about a question about a video posted, and they're like, "Yeah, but what do Roman numerals even mean?" And it's a great question because so much of the time, musical symbols, musical terms are used, like subdominant or dominant or tritone, or these seemingly strange and mystical words that really aren't that complicated. In another live stream, we talked about what some of those terms mean, like supertonic and subdominant, dominant, and all of that. This time we're going to talk about Roman numerals. And in regular life, Roman numerals are just kind of a dusty, old, archaic symbol set that nobody really uses. You might see Roman numerals on, like the cornerstone of a building, saying, this building was erected in, and then some sequence of strange Roman numerals. Or at the end of movies, sometimes they'll say this film was made, and then it has Roman numerals. And Roman numerals have this, because they're archaic, they have this kind of esoteric, mystical feel to them. And so that only adds to the seeming mystery of music and music theory, when really they're not that complicated. And in fact, not only are they not complicated, but they're actually really useful. There's some really cool power to Roman numerals, and there's a reason we use them other than to look fancy. So let's look at Roman numerals and not only understand why they're cool, but why they're super cool and really empowering when it comes to understanding musical patterns. So this is a table of notes, and here at the top we have the major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And if we pick out every other note, starting in each scale degree, we get different chords. The C major chord, which is C, E, and G. And then if we play D, F, and A, starting on the second scale degree 2 right here, which is D in this case, we get D minor, D, F, and A, and on up the line, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. And these labels are right here. So C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. So those are the written names for notes using letter symbols in the key of C. And that's why we're using these specific letter names But where did the Roman numerals come in? You know, because we already have Arabic numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, where the octave really is just the same as the 1. So we just repeat the pattern. So we have Arabic numerals here, and those are handy. And we're used to seeing Arabic numerals in everyday life, in mathematics, and phone numbers, addresses, calendar dates, all of that. We use Arabic numerals. Roman numerals, though, what's up with that? So let's look at the structure of these chords, and we're a step closer to Roman numerals. So here we have, instead of using just the letter names, we're like using X-ray vision to look at kind of the skeletal structure of these chords. And we're still in the key of C. So, C red is the 1. But here this R just means that it's the root. The root is just like the bass note, the lowest note in that chord. So C is the root in C major. D is the root in D major. E is the root, D minor. E is the root in E minor, and so on. So we have all of these roots labeled by R's. Okay. And then we have this M3, capital M3 means that it's a major third. It's the interval from 1 to 3 is a major third. In other videos, we talk about the geometry of that relationship, and that if we were to wrap the major scale into a loop of circular pitch space, you could start to see geometric connections. Geometry just meaning like triangles, squares, basic geometric shapes. So we have a major third in the C major chord between this root, C, a major third to E, which is the next note. And then the next note in that pattern is a perfect fifth, which is labeled by a P5. And if we do, and there's a minor third between E and G. So it's this major chord of C major is made by a major third followed by a minor third. If we start on D, the root of D in the D minor chord, from D to F, the next note in the chord is a minor third. And then from F to A, the perfect fifth of that chord, it's a major third. So you can see how with major and minor thirds, or what musicians call tertian intervals, tertian just means of thirds, we have a variety of chords. And so if the chord has a major third, if it begins with a major third as the first interval, you can see that all three of those are major chords. You have C major, F major, and G major. All of the chords that start with a minor, D minor, E minor, and A minor, are all minor chords. So we have three major chords and then also three minor chords. And then this diminished chord is made up of a root note, B in this case, followed by a minor third and another minor third that together, if you add up those two minor thirds, you get a diminished fifth, which is basically just like a flatted fifth. So what these symbols over here mean are that the first six chords, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and A minor, it's all the interval of a perfect fifth. Notice how this is a perfect fifth, this is a perfect fifth, this is a perfect fifth. And by perfect fifth, I just mean that last note in the chord is a perfect fifth above the root. So G is a perfect fifth above C. A is a perfect fifth above D. B is a perfect fifth above E, and so on. So if we look at the circle of fifths, disregard the numerals here. We're just looking at the circle of fifths. Just going to align the numerals so we're in the key of C, but you don't have to care about the Roman numerals. So C, its fifth is G. So from red to red orange is the interval of a perfect fifth. And so we see that in this chord. From red right here to G is a perfect fifth. Then from D to A is a perfect fifth, which you can see here. From D to A is a perfect fifth. So that's just what these root to perfect fifth intervals are. And the cool thing is that the first 6 chords, like I say, all of the major chords and minor chords have a perfect fifth. And then it's only this last chord, the diminished chord, that has a diminished. Otherwise, the pattern is consistent for all of the chords in this key. Okay, so how does that tie in with Roman numerals? What's the point? We're getting to Roman numerals by first understanding how these patterns of major thirds and minor thirds, also known as tertian intervals, result in a variety of harmonies, major and minor chords, and also a diminished chord. So when we get into Roman numerals, there are 7 chords in this key, and each chord, and we're using the key of C as an example, but these patterns apply to all 12 keys. We're just using C as a convenient starting point. You have to start somewhere, so we're starting with C. So C, the root note of C, starts on scale degree 1. And that chord, the C major chord, is labeled by a 1, not an Arabic numeral 1, but a Roman numeral 1. Likewise, the second scale degree, D, starts the D minor chord, and so that chord is labeled by a 2, but not an Arabic 2, a Roman numeral 2. And then we have E, which starts on the third scale degree, an Arabic numeral. And normally we just call these numbers, but technically they're Arabic numerals. That's the part of the world historically where these squiggly lines that represent numbers came from. They're Arabic numerals, whereas these Roman numerals were part of the Roman Empire. They were used in Rome. And back in the day, they used to do like math with Roman numerals, which would have been a total headache because you have to like calculate the Roman numerals, which aren't as conducive to math as Arabic numerals. Anyway, so as we go down the line, we've got an E minor, which is a 3, I, but it's a Roman numeral 3, and likewise. And you can just see that, 4 scale degrees is the 4th chord. The 5th scale degree starts the 5th chord, 6, 6, and 7, 7. So that's where these Roman numerals come from. It's because they represent the chords that start on those respective scale degrees in a given key. But one thing that kind of drives me crazy sometimes, you'll see in music theory tutorials and videos and all of that, sometimes they'll just call this like the 6th chord, and it's just a capital 6. But you lose some of the nuance and meaning when you just kind of like fat thumb the Roman numerals with capital letters. What do I mean by capital letters? Because as you'll notice, some of these chords, some of these numerals are capital, and like those, and then some of them are lowercase letters, and then also this one has this crazy looking circle symbol. So let's unpack that a bit. The reason that these are capital numerals is because they're the major chords. So there's a subtle distinction between the Roman numerals in the way that they're represented with either uppercase or lowercase letters. That's the thing about Roman numerals, which is cool and that distinguishes them from Arabic numerals, is that because they're alphanumeric, they're letters that represent numbers, you have the ability to distinguish between uppercase and lowercase, or in this case, major and minor chords. So the 2 chord is a minor chord. D minor is minor, and that's why it's a lowercase 2. E minor is a minor chord, so that's why it's a lowercase 3. F major is a major chord, starts on the 4th scale degree. That's why it's an uppercase 4, Roman numeral 4, and so on. So that's why, for me, it's like, it's frustrating to see sometimes. You'll see this in books too. Like, I don't know how this is even a thing, where you show Roman numerals, like this is supposed to be a minor chord, and you're supposed to know, oh, that's a minor, A minor in this case, but it's a capital Roman numeral. You just have to know. But why make it hard on yourself or on others? And sometimes you'll see this as a 3, and it's crazy because that actually would be an E major chord in the key of C, which would be a borrowed chord from another part of the circle of fifths. So it really is useful to leverage the fact that we're using letter symbols in Roman numerals, and take advantage of the fact that you can use uppercase and lowercase to distinguish between the different qualities of chords. Qualities meaning major versus minor. Also, the diminished chord here, B diminished, because it's built by 2 minor third intervals with that diminished fifth, has a special quality. It's not only minor, it's diminished, meaning it has 2 minor thirds, which are especially kind of weak sounding. They sound, well, more diminished, hence the term. So this is kind of an arbitrary symbol. It's not really super intuitive, but that little 0 or O, superscribed O symbol, is diminished. So that distinguishes this chord from, say, A minor, because there is no little O symbol. It's just a lowercase Roman numeral. So now we have 7 Roman numerals, and you can see how they correspond with the Arabic numerals. And the cool thing about using Roman versus Arabic is that, like I say, with that, by using letter number symbols, the Roman numerals, they convey more information, more so than the Arabic numerals can do, because there isn't capital or lowercase Arabic numerals. So you couldn't really use Arabic numerals to communicate the qualities of a chord like Roman numerals can do. So that's why they're awesome. And they also don't conflict with the Arabic numerals. In fact, they actually reinforce the reference point to a given note, or in this case, the given roots of chords. And they help reinforce Arabic numeral information in their own special way, which is awesome. Let's look a little more at these symbols. And so, like I'm saying, when we kind of step back and just soak it in, because it's so easy to look at a diagram like this and be like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a bunch of symbols. So let's break it down. We have letters, which are used to represent individual pitches. We have numbers, used to distinguish scale degrees or intervals in a given key. And then we have numerals, which label the different chords that are formed within a given key based on a combination of letters and numbers. So pitches and intervals combined form chords. And that's where using these colors and shapes is really helpful, because the colored shapes like pack a 1-2 punch, pack a 1-3 punch in the sense that we're killing multiple birds with one stone. I've tried to use that phrase like you skin 2 cats with 1 knife. There's like no pacifist way to say that. With that, you peel multiple potatoes with a knife. It's like, I guess you could say peel multiple potatoes with 1 knife. But we have numbers, which are meant to represent scale degrees, but they are indirect in that they're kind of like a step removed from showing how the notes relate. Then you have letters, which are also indirect in that there are these abstract symbols that have been retrofitted or kind of awkwardly applied to musical notes. And then you have the colors and shapes, which more intuitively and immediately help you visualize both interval relationships that the numbers are trying to represent, and specific pitches, which the colors represent more intuitively and directly than the letters. And combined, it's using the colors and shapes, it's a single streamlined interface that's more direct. Then with numerals on top of that, like if you were just relying on letters and numbers and then you pile on numerals on top of that, it's like, whoa, that's a lot of symbols to sift through. There's a lot of sand and symbolic meaning that is just kind of like lost in the clutter. So using the colors and shapes really helps to clarify the different relationships and patterns that are going on here. So anyway, those are the 3 main symbol sets that we're talking about: numbers, letters, and numerals. But let's unpack that a little bit further. And what we have here are, it's kind of interesting how this works. So we have letters that really only distinguish the pitches. They don't inherently communicate relationships so much. It's just this note is C or this note is F. They're not necessarily even trying to communicate that there's a connection between those individual pitches. Then we have numbers that do provide context, because you're starting to see, okay, 1 in relation to 4, there is like a distance, in this case, a harmonic distance between them. But so in that way, letters and numbers in music serve 2 different but complementary purposes. One is to distinguish. Letters are meant to distinguish. Numbers are meant to provide context. In the chord, and those have to do with just individual notes themselves or the intervals between them. So those come into play in terms of scales. We use Arabic numerals. The world of scales is totally about Arabic numerals. Whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or you might have a flat third, or all of that to play different modes. But it's all about Arabic numerals. Then if we get into chords, we have 2 main types of ways to refer to chords. We have just their names, which using letters, just like the pitches for notes, letter names for notes, they just distinguish only. You have a major chord, a minor chord, but we don't know how this minor relates to this major, how this minor relates to this minor, and so on. So these names, like major, minor, diminished, help to distinguish the quality of the chord only, but nothing more than that. You don't know how the chords relate. Then you have Roman numerals that, like the Arabic numerals, provide context. Now you know that 1 and 4, there's a harmonic relationship. There's an interval between the root notes of those chords that has some meaning. That meaning, however, can be obscured or difficult to discern with traditional symbols only, like Arabic numerals or Roman numerals or letters or major. So in this case, we have to use all of these multiple overlays of symbols, Arabic numerals, Roman numerals, letters, or chord names, to like overlay this information and hope that you can discern something from that. It's very inefficient. It's like if it was coding, computer programming, it would be shitty code. Like it's just bad code because it's very clunky. And so to use a streamlined symbol set that communicates all of this really helps to make sense. Like it's aiding this conversation to be able to describe these things. If I was relying on only traditional symbols, it would be more of a mouthful, more of an eyeful, and more enervating than energizing. So let's look a little further, and it's kind of interesting how why we use Arabic numerals for individual scale degrees and why we use chords, Roman numerals for chords. And it's brilliant how, yes, these symbols are archaic and sometimes counterintuitive, but they are brilliant in that they do serve special purposes that are complementary. So we have Arabic numerals that are more common in everyday use. Like I say, we see Arabic numerals in phone numbers, in birthdays, in days of the week, in regular math. Like Arabic numerals are like very modern and very common. However, they're also limited, like I say, because they don't have capital, uppercase, and lowercase symbols. So they're kind of like they're awesome and they're streamlined and they're easier to work with than, say, Roman numerals in everyday life, but they're more limited in the symbols themselves. Like the advantage of the symbols is also their weakness, in that they're simple and streamlined, but there's also no case, uppercase or lowercase. Roman numerals are more obscure, certainly today. Like I say, they're cornerstones of buildings, the year of a movie, I'm trying to think of what else Roman numerals are used for. It's not coming to mind, like other than music theory. But they are more versatile. So the cool thing is that a lot of the time in music theory, we are talking about scales, or we're talking about just the relationships between individual pitches. And so it's cool that the more common symbol set, Arabic numerals, are conducive to just talking about individual notes and relationships and scale degrees and all of that. As you start to get into chords, though, which are inherently more complex in that we're talking about simultaneous harmonies played together and in sequence, which is the next level beyond scales. Chords are more involved than individual modes and scales. To have more obscure symbols that haven't already been used to talk about the more basic stuff, it's cool to have like, oh, okay, we have this less common symbol set that hasn't been used. Not only that, but it's also more conducive to understanding the relationships between chords and the qualities of those chords, with the capital numerals to represent major chords, the minor numerals or the lowercase numerals to represent minor chords, and then also basically the diminished chord with its extra little symbol. So it's really cool how it works, these different symbols. And so Roman numerals are awesome. They're very intentionally designed, despite my bag on just the poor coding. The poor coding is a reference to just all of the symbol sets together without really depicting them in the way that they're most easily understood, which is using color. And the cool thing about these Roman numerals is that they apply to all 12 keys. So we've been talking about the key of C out of convenience. C is a nice key, but it's only one of 12. And so, these same patterns apply to, say, the key of G, where you have Arabic numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 is just the octave of that. And you build chords on each root, each respective scale degree. And it's the same Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with major chords being capital and minor chords being lowercase, and diminished chord having this little O symbol. And looking at these chords in table format is helpful. This is especially conducive to, say, playing the piano, because that's how the notes are laid out in a linear formation like this. But of course, if we were to play these same patterns on a guitar with chord shapes, that's why sometimes you'll see these chord shapes labeled by Roman numerals. And now that you know what the Roman numerals mean, it's not as mysterious, because yes, this is a lot of symbols on top of each other with letters. We have the letters, we have the letter labels, we have in this case, actually these don't represent scale degrees, they just represent numbers, the digits of your hand to play the different notes of the chord. But there are Arabic numerals right there, and then you also have Roman numerals, and it's like, whoa, that's a lot of symbols to make sense of. But at least now that you understand Roman numerals and where they come from and their value in conveying the quality of different harmonies, you don't get distracted by the symbols so much, and you can really dive into what they mean, work with these patterns, and ultimately create music, which is the point. So that is Roman numerals in a nutshell. And like I say, I came out of my stupor. Hopefully it felt like I came out of my stupor, like I was talking about at the start, because I've been trancing out on lesson 18 to get the modes lesson complete. So now I just want to kind of wrap it up and say thank you for geeking out with me on this one. Hopefully Roman numerals won't seem so mysterious, and you can start to use them and not, have them, like I say, be a distraction. So does anyone have any questions about Roman numerals, or is there any, we talked about one thing that I should mention here, and if you have any questions, I'm keeping my eyes open. We talked about the Roman numerals, like the basic Roman numerals of the Ionian mode, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you will start to see in different modes, like a 1, a 2, a 3 diminished. Like you start to see, you know, flat 6 and different symbols, and really we're getting into that's it's based on a flatted sixth of the underlying mode, and it's a major chord. So the idea of Roman numerals holds up. It's just once you get into modes, you start applying more symbols, and it's just building upon the idea of Roman numerals. So yeah, before I jump off, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to speak to it. But if not, that's totally cool. It gives you some time to geek out with Roman numerals and jump in. So thank you for joining me. We're going to have a good rest of the evening, and I will see you real soon. Have a good one.